Very good. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, here for our initial meeting in post-election 2021. It is October the 25th at 5 p.m. and I'll call our organizational meeting to order. We can have a look through the agenda while I congratulate the people of Lacombe for electing a fine-looking council. Welcome to all of you. We've got a special guest here to administer our oath of office. Chief Bloomhagen, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Do that for us. We genuinely appreciate it. Very good. So before I begin, I just want to let everybody know, because of the new equipment and whatnot that we have in here, I expect there will be a few errors, likely on mostly my own. But I would caution everyone to certainly use your mics, be as close as you can to them and speak directly into them. It's not so much a matter of people here in the gallery hearing, but if you do not see your red light on and do not speak directly into the microphone, then the teams, or the individuals joining us via Teams will not hear anything. It's not like it's muffled or silent. It is absolutely non-existent. So keep that in mind. So speak loudly and into your mics when in fact it is your time to speak. Just a reminder. And we have someone to move the agenda, please. Councillor Hoekstra.
I'll be the first guinea pig. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. For the purpose of discussion, I'd like to possibly discuss later, possibly of amending the budget dates, if that's possible. Or what item that would be appropriate.
It would appear under item 3.2 for council meeting dates.
Yes, thank you.
Very well. Anyone else? All those in favor? Very good. We are officially in business for our organization meeting. Chief Bloomhagen, I would ask that you administer the oath of office. Rather than jump you, I understand stuff. Is correct?
Correct. Call Mayor Creasy forward.
I, Grant Russell Creasy,
That I will diligently,
swear that I will diligently, faithfully,
and to the best of my ability, according to law,
execute according to law
the office of mayor for the city of Lacombe.
the office of City of
Be good.
Well.
Thanks, I'm here.
Hypothetically, if anybody is
So, repeat after me. I solemnly affirm
faithfully,
and to the best of my ability, execute according to law,
execute according to law
the office of counselor,
the office of counselor for the city of Lacombe.
ask Dr. Nelson. I state
I, Donald Robert Ellison,
your name, diligently,
where I will diligently,
faithfully,
faithfully,
best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
execute according to law,
execute according to law,
the office of
counselor, in the city of Lacombe. Thank you. Gotta make it official. Tried to get it. There has been some. Well, I'm signing for mayor, you know.
I, Talia Dawn Hibbs,
that I will diligently,
swear that I will diligently,
faithfully,
faithfully,
best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
according to law,
execute according to law,
the office of counselor,
the office of counselor for the city of Lacombe. So help me God.
counselor,
That was,
Well, none of us were like, get that. It's all do it. Sarah Juliet Dijkstra,
whether I will diligently,
swear that I will diligently,
faithfully,
faithfully,
best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
execute law,
execute according to law,
counselor,
the office of counselor, city of Lacombe. Help me God.
I
I, Ruben
diligently,
and that I will do
faithfully,
faithfully,
to my ability,
to the best of my ability,
according to law,
execute the law
the office
of councillor.
I, Christine Ross,
diligently,
swear that I will diligently, faithfully,
to my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
execute according to law,
execute according to law
office
the office of councillor for the city of Lacombe. So help me God.
Mayor Creasy,
We appreciate it, your time for coming and helping us out. Thank you very much. And so just a reminder for everyone, for some of you that may have been here for the oath of office only, you are certainly welcome to stay if you so choose, as it is a public meeting, or leave at any time that you wish. Thanks, everyone. With that in mind, everyone, we will move on to here's an odd question, Chief Gowdy. Is there any formal have been here for the
Motion required
oath of
for
office only?
in a
You are
group setting like
certainly
this, or no?
welcome to. Is very good. Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. On to our new business, item 3.2, the 2021-2022 council meeting dates. Chief Gowdy.
Sorry, Mayor Creasy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bellabono. Your mic is not on, Chief Gowdy. There you are.
I'm sorry. Thank you. It sounded like I thought I was hearing myself actually, but it's just the echo from the dividers. Okay, so recently the Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework and Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee recommended and council adopted an updated framework for considering shared projects that would arise in the community that met a certain threshold. One of the steps is that when such a project arises, there's a committee of the whole meeting scheduled within 90 days between Lacombe County and the city of Lacombe. We have been working with the Lacombe Athletic Park Association, who wishes to propose their Phase 3 upgrades for inclusion in the capital budget of both communities. And December 1st is the proposed date for that meeting. It is scheduled from 9 a.m. to 10:30, or proposed to be scheduled from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And I normally wouldn't say this, but I would, in this instance, it's important to know that quorum is what's required here, not all 7 members. And we acknowledged that in the committee discussions as well, that with this format, it's unlikely that you'll get 7 members of Lacombe County and 7 members of the city of Lacombe able to attend. We're looking for at least 4 that can make it from each community. We also have a committee of the whole meeting proposed for Monday, June 6th to look at an update. That is our annual update of the strategic plan, although we'll be going through a renewal and creation process here over the next few months. So it'll be kind of a 6-month update at that time. And then, of course, we have the committee of the whole meeting proposed for pre-budget direction and presentations from internal and external organizations. Other than that, it is consistent with your procedural bylaw, which looks for the, excuse me, which states that the 2nd and 4th Monday at 5 p.m. is the standard council meeting dates, with committee meetings to be held on the 1st Monday whenever possible. There are a number of impacts from statutory holidays. They're reflected on the proposed committee meeting dates. Now, in pre-meeting discussions with Councillor Ross, I believe that his interest isn't necessarily in adjusting these proposed dates, but actually the budget workshop dates. Is that accurate?
Yes, CEO Gowdy, just for my job, my employer is extremely generous and the majority of the time of year, but I have 3 agriculture trade shows that are a must, and they are the Tuesday through Friday. So I was asking if council and administration be gracious enough to have, for example, a budget workshop on Friday, Monday instead of Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, if I recall.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. Rather than using days of the week, let's try and stick with dates. So
My apologies. I don't know the dates. What's anybody have the date? I have my phone up. What is Friday? Okay, so change it to Friday, November 5th and Monday, November 8th. If that's possible, if that's amicable within everyone.
Councilor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with trying to work around a schedule. The only thing is, if you notice, the first work day is only like a half day, and then the next day was meant to be a full day. So I don't know if that would be accommodated by that change. So I guess I would like administration's input into that.
Chief Gowdy.
My apologies. I'm just trying to find the dates. So the proposal is to switch the Monday half day and the Tuesday full day, which are the 8th and 9th, to a half day on the 5th, which is the Friday. Which is the date that you are looking to accommodate?
I would prefer to not be present on the afternoon of the 9th forward. So that is I was asking if a full day Friday and then the half day Monday, which, because then we already have council Monday evening, do we not? So a whole day and then council makes it a very long day on Monday. So.
So we can look to reschedule. Right now, myself and the senior leadership team have leadership training scheduled for the Friday morning, which is the only thing that would make that difficult on our end. However, I could look to see if that can be adjusted.
Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would like to accommodate this, but I can't say right at the moment. I have to check and make sure that my other schedule, my home schedule works with that. So I wouldn't be able to make a decision on this tonight.
Fair enough. Is there anyone that definitely cannot attend at the proposed dates? Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess similar to Councillor Gullickson's concern, I am assuming that I can make adjustments in my work schedule, but I don't know that I can necessarily accommodate it either. So I would appreciate a little bit of time to investigate that as well. So if we're not necessarily making that decision tonight, that would be appreciated because I don't now want it. I did make arrangements to make the original dates to work, so I don't know if I can undo them, I guess, is what my concern is. So thank you.
Certainly all fair comments, and I would suggest that, yeah, I mean, it isn't reasonable for everybody just to be able to change their schedule on a moment's notice here. However, we do have, or I do see appetite for a willingness to adjust if possible. And I'm going to leave it up to our administration to see if they can alter the schedule accordingly. In consideration of everyone, though, we do need to have a date, an end date when this has to be decided by. So by Thursday or so, would that be a reasonable expectation?
Essentially, I'm going to be talking to our trainer, and then I will solicit input from council to confirm whether or not they're able to make a change. And if there is a willingness and ability to do so, we'll certainly make that known as soon as possible, both within the context of the MGA, because it is a public meeting date, and so that requires advance advertising if there is a change, and I'll let council know as soon as possible. Thursday for sure is sufficient time.
Very good, and that'll give those individuals that had concerns about the date time to investigate further, and we will coordinate that through the legislative coordinator would probably be the appropriate route.
Yes, Coordinator Betty Bellabono and myself will handle it and get back to you shortly.
Very good. And Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. If I may ask a further indulgence of council, I don't have a problem, by the way, with the change in dates, but as you're all aware, I drive a school bus. And it used to be that I could get to these meetings for 5 o'clock, no problem. I can get to them for 5 o'clock, but it means I don't get a chance to eat anything, and I don't want to get hangry in a couple hours. So today I had a couple pieces of cold pizza on the drive over, but so I'm just wondering if it's at all possible, if we could bump the council committee meetings from 5 to like 5:15, 5:30. Just wondering what the feelings are about that. If not, I'll just be late every time, but otherwise, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone have any preferences on that? I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that the 5:15 is, I expect, doable. 5:30, it may be suitable for some, but we also have to consider that as we look up at our board here, how many staff are involved, and it does alter their workday significantly because just something that I would like for us to be cognizant of. Is that a fair assessment, Chief Gowdy, or do you not see any problems with an adjustment to our meeting times?
We're here to serve, so of course, no problems with it, but it's exactly as you said. Of course, it makes for a longer day. Such a change can easily be made, however, through the procedural bylaw, and you can adjust your meeting times for both committee meetings or regular council meetings to accommodate any councilor's schedule as you see fit. We'll be going over that later in the meeting, but if you wanted to make specific changes, that would be suitable right now. to have 5:15 or 5:30 starts for the listed ones. But I would recommend that if that is a practice adopted by council, that you direct us to update the procedural bylaw to reflect that in the next quarter or so.
Very well. I think I would like input from each of you. So if I could just work our way around the table after we're done with comments here and just get individual input on a time that would be preferable, keeping in mind everything that's been said. So Councillor Hoekstra, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. As you know, I definitely support having a later meeting start date, so, or start time. So whatever, I support what Councillor Connick is requesting.
Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I also, it doesn't matter to me very much, but I would like to see it on the half hour instead of 15 minutes. And as much for public as for us. So they know 5:30 is our start.
Very good. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I could concur with Councillor Gullickson that going to the half hour would be make more sense than 5:15, but so I don't think a half hour is going to be too much of an issue, but that's just my personally. So I concur with Councillor Gullickson.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I am flexible with my availability and will be here to make things work, whatever we can decide on.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I was waiting for Councillor Connick, but of course it's his idea, so he's already shared that information. Yeah, it could be waiting well. I support moving back for any number of reasons. One, it helps accommodate our working schedules. And I think allowances could be made for administration. Maybe they start a little bit later in that day, but I mean, fact of the matter is it's a long day for all of us. So it is what it is. I do actually think a later start date would potentially help members of the public actually attend, particularly the open forum at the beginning of meetings as well. It just makes it a bit more accessible. So with that reasoning, I'm actually in full support of moving to 5:30 if that works.
Very good. So Councillor Connick, you've heard all the input. I'm going to leave it to you to, that should still be brought forward in a form of a motion on this type of a change, should it not, Chief?
Yes, rather than adopting the meeting dates as proposed, I would suggest that you modify the 5 p.m. start time for whichever committee or council meetings you would prefer, whether that's specific ones or blanket for this specific motion. And then when we bring the procedural bylaw forward, that would be suitable for a change to make sure that is reflected going forward in future proposed dates as well.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Just a point of clarity, is this for committee meetings or is this for council meetings or both? Oh, okay. I was going for committee. Well done. Oh,
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. That being said, I would so move that council approve the regular and committee council meeting dates from November 2021 to October 22, as amended with the start time for all of them to 5:30 p.m.
Very much. Anybody have any additional?
Sorry, Mayor Creasy, your mic isn't on.
I'm sure that'll never happen again. Thank you very much for that. I was just directing Chief Gowdy and yourself to update the meeting schedule accordingly to reflect the new start time of 5:30 p.m. unless directed otherwise on an individual basis. Chief Gotti, let's continue on with the deputy mayor roster, please.
City of Lacomb's procedural bylaw sets the deputy mayor roster as a simple 2-month rotation, ensuring that all councillors receive adequate and equivalent exposure to that duty throughout the year. The proposed roster starts with Councillor Hibbs, then moves to Councillors Connick, Dallas, Hoekstra, Ross, and Gullickson, with the intention to repeat starting in 2022.
Very good. I do not believe that your mic was on for that, so I'm just going to reiterate here that from November through December is Councillor Hibbs for the deputy mayor schedule. January and February of 2022, Councillor Connick, March and April, Councillor Dallas, May and June, Councillor Hoekstra, July and August, Councillor Ross, September and October, Councillor Gullickson. Any questions from anyone? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that council approve the proposed deputy mayor roster to October 2022 as presented.
Thank you very much. I see no additional comments. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And the council appointments to boards, commissions, and committees, Chief Gotti.
So your procedural bylaw outlines the process for council's appointments to the various committees, boards, and commissions that the city sits on that have council representation. Those are listed in your package, and I will be going through them later, so I won't go through them individually right now. But essentially, the process is that the mayor selects individual councillors to propose for membership on the commission, and then those decisions are debated and ratified if found acceptable by council, and then reviewed annually. So proposed for the 2021-2022 term are the following. On the Affordable Housing Strategy Steering Committee, Councillors Hoekstra and Gullickson. On the Downtown Area Redevelopment Plan Advisory Committee, or the DARP Committee, this is, well, actually, I'll be going through those later, so I won't say the purpose now, is Councillor Connick. The Rec Board, the Lacombe and District Recreation Parks and Culture Board is Councillor Ross. Councillor Hibbs on the Lacombe Art Collection Committee. Councillor Hoekstra is proposed for the Lacombe Police Commission. The Lacombe Library Board would have Councillor Dallas with Councillor Hibbs as an alternate under the proposed membership. The Municipal Planning Commission has 3 members. Proposed are Councillors Mayor Creasy, Councillor Gullickson, Councillor Ross. On your external boards, commissions, and committees, the proposals are as follows. Councillors Dallas and Gullickson on the Airport Committee, Councillor Hibbs on the Echolocom Association, Councillor Dallas on the Central Alberta Regional Trails Initiative, Councillors Connick and Hoekstra on the Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee, or the IDP Committee, Councillor Gullickson on the Lacombe and District Chamber of Commerce, that's a liaison position only, Councillor Ross on the Lacombe and District Family and Community Support Services Board, FCSS, Councillor Connick on the Lacombe Days Committee, Lacombe Foundation Board, and the Lacombe Foundation Board. Mayor Creasy and Councillor Gullickson on the Lacombe Regional Waste Services Commission. The Lacombe Regional Tourism and Marketing Association is proposed for Councillor Dallas. Mayor Creasy with an alternate of Councillor Hibbs on the North Red Deer Regional Wastewater Services Commission. Mayor Creasy as the North Red Deer River Water Services Commission. And Councillor Dallas as the Lacombe County Fire Services Advisory Committee with Councillor Ross as an alternate.
Thank you, Chief Gotti. The benefit of everyone here, I think that most of us understand there's a great number of factors that go into these appointments. Well, I hope that you respect the choices that I have made for them. In extenuating circumstances, I could be convinced to look at some of the appointments, but I'm not going to make any promises that there can be adjustments because it is quite a juggling act to accommodate schedules and interests, and how I feel that the community will be best served as well. So with that in mind, if in fact there are any reasons as to why you may not be able to fulfill the obligations on any of those appointments, I would appreciate hearing from you in relatively short order in the hopes that perhaps some adjustments can be made. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So not now, you're saying, like, to do this privately then, rather than?
To be honest with you, I think that that would be better for our time served because, like I said, there are an awful lot of factors that go into making these choices, and any adjustment has a tendency to have quite a ripple effect and affect many other appointments. So in my opinion, it would not be an efficient use of our time at this time. Fair enough? Okay. So just to be certain with that, Council or Chief Gowdy, if in fact in time there were adjustments, procedurally, what hurdles do we have to cross to make that happen?
No major hurdles, a simple resolution acknowledging the reappointments or adjusted appointments would be necessary at a subsequent meeting, but that could easily be done.
Very good. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Chris. I would so move that council approve the 2021-22 councillor appointments to council commissions, boards, and committees as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult, but just in the memo, I did notice that November 4th shows a Heritage Resources Committee meeting, and I don't believe we have anybody assigned to that committee. At least I didn't come across it, so correct me if I'm wrong. And then also I noticed on the November 24th, it has the Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Services Commission meeting. As an email that I had sent to administration, that date has been changed for that first meeting. It is now, I believe, December 1st. Does that sound familiar, Mayor Creasy?
That is correct. It is December 1st.
Okay, and then also the time is incorrect. As far as I know, it is not 7 p.m. It should be the usual 1:15.
I believe that it is.
So yeah, so just to have that corrected for whomever is on that services, they'll definitely want the right date and the right time. And then the other just comment that I wanted to make, just because we all are changing up as far as, well, most of us are changing. It's important to read like what the requirements are, what the purpose of you being at those committee meetings or board meetings or commission meetings are, because I noticed that in some cases you're a voting member, in some cases you're not. And that makes a difference. So just make sure that you're reviewing what you're assigned to and what the expectation is of your role on that committee, board, or commission.
Very good. Anyone else? We do have a motion before us. It's put forward by Councillor Connick. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Everybody's favorite item, council seating arrangements. Chief Gowdy.
So the Municipal Government Act does require you to adopt seating arrangements annually at the organizational meeting. We have proposed the seating that you are experiencing right now, although obviously in more normal times, we would have our directors here as well. But just to limit the number of people in the room, we've had them connect remotely tonight. Yeah, nothing special. It matches what's proposed, and I guess if you would like it adjusted, we're happy to do that.
Very good, thank you. Any input or motions? Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I don't have any proposed changes, so I move that council endorse the proposed seating arrangements until the next organizational meeting.
I see no other hands, so I will call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous as well. Thank you. And then joining us remotely, I believe that we have Senior Manager McKinnon. If you could take us through the appointment of designated signing officers portion, item 3.6, please.
Good evening, Mayor Creasy and Council. The purpose is to update the designated signing authorities for the City of Lacombe. The signing authorities for banking instruments and legal documents require 2 signatures in accordance with the procurement policy. This means that one member of council, one member of the authorized member of administration must sign all banking instruments and legal documents. The recommended motion is that council approves the addition of Scott Dallas as a designated signing officer for bank instructions, forms, and legal documents, and that council approves the deletion of Jonathan Jacobson.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that council approves the addition of Scott Dallas, new councillor, as a designated signing officer for bank instructions, forms, and legal documents.
Thank you very much. Any comment, Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. My biggest question with this is this I would abstain from voting on this issue or raising my hand, sorry? No, okay. Thank you.
Did you have something to add, Chief Cody? Very good. I believe that someone perhaps remotely might have a microphone on. We've got some feedback happening here. So if I could ask you to check that. Thank you. And in the meantime, then we will call the question with respect to the motion before us for signing officer. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Councillor Hoekstra.
I'll make the next motion. Sorry, I'll make the next motion that council approves the deletion of Jonathan with an A. As a signing authority.
Thank you. Whether lights are on, all those in favor? And that is unanimous as well. Thank you. The items that we have before new business, and there is in fact a single item as listed for in-camera labor FOIP section 17. If I could have a motion so that we may discuss that, please. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would move that we move in camera.
It is 5:43 by my clock. I see no additional input. All those in favor? Consideration, council. Mr. Goetz.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll move that council approve the commission, board and committee appointments and reappointments as presented with remaining vacancies to be advertised.
I move to adjourn.
Sorry, Mayor Creasy, we can't hear you.
There's a perfectly good reason for that. I did not have my microphone on. It is now 5:56 p.m. and I call the meeting to order for our Council Orientation Committee of the Whole meeting, and the agenda is before you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor? So carried, unanimous. Thank you. Chief Gowdy, you've got an awful lot of information to present to us here. I'm assuming that the order as it's set forward is as convenient as any. If it is, let's
Yes.
please proceed with item 3.1, what every councillor needs to know in the official handbook.
This is an official handbook that you may have reviewed for many of you in your initial term in 2017. It has been updated to reflect some of the modernized Municipal Government Act changes that occurred during your term, but largely it has not dramatically changed. So what I think I will do is go down the table of contents and give a high level comment about each section in there, and then feel free to stop me or ask me questions or anything as we go through, if that's acceptable.
Absolutely, thank you.
Things to know. Oath of office, you just took it. Your role is to set the policy of the organization and guide the actions of the municipality through good policy, review of and amending, or creating other policies. The actual definition within the Municipal Government Act is more along the lines of provide services that are in the interests of residents. There are actually very few required services that you provide, but our municipality has chosen over time to provide a fairly extensive suite of services, including utilities, emergency services, and recreational programming. Be familiar with your legislation, the Municipal Government Act. That is the number one. The Freedom of Information and Privacy, Protection of Privacy Act is also very important to what you do, and you'll have a brief presentation on that later on, so I'm not going to go into it in detail. The Municipal Government Act itself was most recently amended, significantly amended in the last 2 years, and prior to that, it was passed in 1996. I would encourage you to make use of the electronic version if you are going to it, so that you can use the search and find functionality. That makes it a lot easier to use. And just reach out to me if you have questions, and I might be able to help point you in the right direction. How you can help, be prepared, be engaged in the community, make sure you are touching base with people and finding out what people think of different issues, and then really bring that back to administration. That's I like to look at it as kind of a ship. You've got a whole bunch of people doing the things on the ship, making sure it's rowing in the right direction. Council is really that person or persons up in the crow's nest, seeing what's coming and then deciding how to chart a path there. Understand the financial implications of your decisions. So the city of Lacombe typically has an annual budget between $40 and $50 million. And so your implication or your decisions have significant implications. For every hour that is spent by a councillor in this room, there are hundreds of hours that are spent by administrative staff enacting those decisions. And so it is a significant responsibility, which you have been burdened with, but which I hope you will enjoy. Let employees do their jobs. So yeah, your employee is me, and actually the other employees of the city are answerable to the CAO. You'll see that later in the organizational structure. And so it is important that you funnel any decisions or any requests for action or information through myself, not directly to employees. And that lets us make sure that we're handling requests in the proper fashion. They're not disrupting other work, and it's not being sometimes, if a response or action is directed to a specific employee or area of the municipality, sometimes there isn't a fulsome understanding of the implications that that decision or action might have on other areas of the municipality, even within that division of the organization. So it is not just good governance, it is actually the legal responsibility of council to come to me with requests and information, and then I will gather that information or enact that decision on your behalf. Understand and avoid pecuniary interest and conflict of interest. So there is two things. There's a legal definition of pecuniary interest, which is in the MGA. There's also the appearance of conflict of interest, and you have to navigate those two sometimes conflicting aspects. The pecuniary interest that's defined in the Municipal Government Act is actually very narrow. It's about immediate family members and employers of which you are an employee. Now, Councillor Dallas, it is my understanding that you are an employee of the city of Red Deer. Is that a correct understanding? Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so for example, if I may use that as an example, if the city were entering into negotiations with the city of Red Deer for, say, the provision of water, which we do, or provision of wastewater, that would be something that we would want to do some exploration to see if that meets the legal definition of pecuniary interest before having you vote on it or participate in that discussion. So basically, I would say if you are coming up on a position where you think you may be, please give me a call and we will do whatever investigation is needed. More time than less is appreciated, but we'll certainly find out an answer for you if you think you may be in conflict at any time.
Chief Gowdy, just a brief addition to that. I want to remind everyone that those types of decisions do ultimately rest with each individual here. We're fortunate to have an administrative team that is more than willing to help us in making the correct decisions, but the ultimate choice is still certainly up to each individual. I think that's an important distinction.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. And that does bring me to the municipality's lawyer is not your lawyer. So certainly we do have access to legal counsel and we have some expertise in-house. But if you are unsure of your responsibilities or any obligations, Again, I'm here to help however I can, but ultimately, legal representation is your own responsibility. Information is public, so anything that's discussed here other than in-camera items is a matter of public record. It is recorded. That recording is posted on YouTube, so it can be checked later, and minutes are taken. So everything that is discussed here, as well as most of your correspondence with city administration or other councillors, can be disclosed in FOIP requests. Not just can, must be. Team approach. A municipality is only as effective as the team of governance and administration. If either of those breaks down, you will either get a floundering, directionless ship that goes nowhere, or you will get great vision and no action. And neither of those things leads to any good outcomes. So despite the fact that we will invariably have disagreements both amongst council members and between council and administration, and believe me, even in administration, we have differences of opinions. At the end of the day, we are only able to advance the priorities of council if there is a mutual respect and trust between both. I think that is one of the greatest things that we enjoyed, speaking myself, last term, and one of the reasons that we were able to remain very effective even during difficult times. So I thank you for that last year or last term, and I have full expectation that that will be the case again this term. Governance. The chief elected official is the mayor. The chief elected official is the term used in the Municipal Government Act, and in different municipalities, actually there is different terms such as reeve that are used from time to time. Code of conduct for elected officials is a new requirement that was brought in during the last term. Code of conduct outlines acceptable practices and outcomes for deviations from acceptable behavior for elected officials. Councillors generally are protected from liability through indemnity within the Municipal Government Act. However, there are specific instances in which you can be held personally liable, and that is the approval of expenditures for a purpose other than they were gathered for. So for example, if you pass the special paving tax that says the municipality will only raise money from this tax to do road maintenance, and then you were to vote to do anything else with it, that would be inappropriate. And in theory, it's never happened in practice. In theory, you could be held personally liable. Similarly, if you were to commit municipality to a course of action for which no budget had been approved, say there was no borrowing bylaw or grant funding source in place, in theory, you could be held personally liable for that expenditure. In practice, it's never happened, and it won't happen at this municipality. I wouldn't be too worried about that. But those are the two instances in which you can be personally liable for your decisions. Sorry. Also, if they are made not in good faith. So if you have information that you don't disclose, or you are in pecuniary interest and you make decisions that way, there is also certain civil liabilities that can be applied. Council meetings, the organizational meeting you just experienced. Regular and special meetings are essentially regular meeting in the city of Lacombe's context are essentially regular, and then what we call committee of the whole meetings. Committee of the whole meetings are slightly different than regular meetings in that there are no motions made other than to go in camera or out of camera. And so they're typically reserved for more debate style or discussion style items where less formality is required. There are a number of council committees, some of which we just assigned members to, all of which we will review briefly later in the meeting, so I won't go through it now. Procedural By-Law, the same thing. I will talk about that in a moment. Policy making and program monitoring. Actually, I don't know what that was. I should have read it, but I have time. Essentially, council's primary influence is through policymaking and amending policy. You will also monitor programs, as I spoke to earlier, through consultation with your friends, family, and ratepayers that you interact with in the municipality. And it's important that that feedback comes back to us. Excuse me. Many of our staff are, of course, residents of the community and have their own circles. But often the information that people are willing to share with a counselor may be different than with administration. And so if you are hearing problems or areas where things are going really well, we'd love to hear that information so we can take action. Voting. You must vote on every item, and this is where there is occasionally conflict between pecuniary interest and the appearance of pecuniary interest. You actually have a legal responsibility to vote, and if you do not vote, can in theory be disbarred from council, and that has happened. If you are found to be claiming pecuniary interest in a case where there is clearly not pecuniary interest, and it's deemed to be a tactic to avoid taking a stance, for example, on an issue, you can be disqualified from council. Moving into the administration, there is a chief administrative officer. That is myself. In many municipalities, it's now called the city manager, and the MGA allows you to adopt whatever moniker you'd like. There are designated officers in our municipality. For example, the returning officer for the recent municipal election was Director Pichet, and from time to time we would designate specific officers. The policies of administration. I will have to just skip over that for now. Staff development. This municipality has a long history of supporting staff development, and I believe that it has benefited greatly from doing so. There is an adopted budget for every administrative personnel within the municipality. And actually, just recently, the mayor and I talked about the concept of investing in council development and making sure that there's sufficient training funds available at all levels of the municipality. The Municipal Government Act requires you to adopt certain financial plans, a 3-year operating plan, and a 5-year capital budget. The City of Lacombe exceeds these requirements by adopting a 3-year operating plan that includes funding sources, which is not required under the Municipal Government Act, and a 10-year capital budget. Again, the financial plan defined by the Municipal Government Act does not require financial plan to be balanced, and it does not require a funding source for your capital expenditures. In both instances, the city does have those identified. There are limits to the amount of money that a municipality can borrow, and there are limits to the amount of money that a municipality can spend on repaying debt in any given year. The City of Lacombe has adopted a financial policy called the Annual Budget and Taxation Preparation Policy, one of the clauses of which includes a 75% limitation to the City of Lacombe's incurred debt. So whatever is determined by the Municipal Government Act, both in terms of total debt as well as debt servicing, the City of Lacombe will only go to 75% of that. The procedure for expenditure authorization here at the City of Lacombe was recently reviewed and updated. So essentially, your process is to adopt program-based budgets as well as capital expenditure budgets. Once those are adopted, there is a procurement policy that guides how administration must award those dollars in a competitive and transparent way, and then they are awarded administratively. So once the budget is approved, largely council will only get involved if there's a deviation from the program objectives or the budget is found to be insufficient. Borrowing is authorized through borrowing bylaws, which the municipality must advertise, and there's a very specific set of guidelines that must be adhered to in the Municipal Government Act. And the city is audited annually. Those audited financials, this goes on, Those audited financial statements are posted on the Municipal Affairs website for our municipality and all others. It is a source of interesting information if you ever are looking for comparable information between different municipalities. And I can show you how to use that website if you're ever interested. Property assessment, taxation, and other revenues. So the city of Lacombe, like many others, relies on a blend of revenue sources to fund its activities, those being property assessment, taxation, which is the same thing, and other revenues. So typically those would be user fees, franchise fees, that sort of thing, and grants. The city of Lacombe and all of Alberta follow a mass appraisal system for taxation assessment, whereby they essentially come to they use aggregated data to come to per square footage or square meter rates for different property classes and areas within the municipality, and then apply those. So they have that aggregated rate, they apply those to your specific property or others. And then there's small factors to reflect superior quality finishes or inferior maintenance, that sort of thing. And so it is actually it's very difficult for someone to appeal their assessment. It often, though, means that individual assessments may not reflect the exact market value of someone's property. So the assessed value and the market value can be very different, but on a broad scale, they must be within 5% to pass the provincial audit. So at the end of every year, essentially, the city adds up all the houses that were sold, all the transactions that occurred, and this is slightly different for commercial property, but residential, they add them all up. They say, okay, using our assessor's formulas, this is how much these properties should have sold for. And then they look and say, well, how much did they actually sell for? And then you add those up and they must be within 5% of one another. We have adopted an internal quality standard of 1% and consistently met that. So even though individual assessed values and market values can differ fairly significantly, on a broad scale, it's a fair method of assessment. If you look at over time, property assessment has been done many different ways over the years. Sometimes it was number of windows in a property, and then people would start breaking up their windows to avoid assessment. And so you see that even in Lacombe here. Number of fireplaces was used for a while. And so it's all a proxy for the amount of services demanded by that property, which is really what you're trying to capture. Commercial and industrial properties, it is slightly different. They come to that aggregate per square meter rate by gathering everyone's income data for those buildings. And then they add that up and then say, restaurant in Lacombe should be worth $20 a square foot in downtown. And if you happen to be a superior quality restaurant, you're laughing because actually your building's worth $25 a square foot. And if you're an inferior quality restaurant, you're saying, well, that's not fair. I'm only $10 a square foot. But it's a built-in incentive that the municipality has to improve the value, because the higher, as long as you're above the average, you're actually benefiting from that appraisal system. Planning and development is the next area. And rather than go through each one of those, I will say that the municipality is governed by an intermunicipal development plan, which guides development on our borders. Then there's a municipal development plan that is citywide and generally lays out our development principles. Coming down is an area structure plan and redevelopment plan. We don't actually have redevelopment plans here, but area structure plans, those are all statutorily required and adopted by resolution. The municipality has the option of adopting an additional level of granularity of plans, that being outline plans, which the city of Lacombe does follow the adoption of outline plans. They are not statutorily required. All of these policies are published on our website, as is required by the Municipal Government Act, and our land use bylaw is also posted there. During the last term, we signed an intermunicipal collaboration framework that outlines the working relationship and process with Lacombe County. Labor it here. Municipal collaboration and mediation, that is contained within the intermunicipal collaboration framework. There is specific steps for mediation if required. Economic development here in the city is an integrated function within all areas of the municipality. However, there is a ECHO board, which I believe Councillor Hoekstra has been appointed to. Is that right? I'm sorry, Councillor Hibbs. Is the city's adopted economic development agency. It was adopted by bylaw last year. They are funded by a combination of utility revenue and some grant revenue given by the city of Lacombe that is then redistributed into the community through that vehicle. Provincial legislation, I would say if you're going to review provincial legislation, I would focus on the Municipal Government Act or specific emergency management acts if you are on those boards. Domestic trade agreements. There is the new West Partnership Trade Agreement, which is used to be called TILMA. It has specific thresholds of 75,000 for services and 200,000 for construction, over which there are very specific requirements for the expenditure of public funds. Particularly, you cannot discriminate or differentiate in any way between the provinces, the Western provinces, and there are reciprocal agreements with Eastern Canada as well. So it isn't to a municipality's option, once you're over those thresholds, to engage in locally preferred procurement practices, for example. I would encourage you to read through the entire document. There was one that I skipped over on page 12, which was administrative policies, and I apologize that I didn't read that ahead of time. But the importance of policies is paramount in providing consistency and transparency to the CAO and the taxpayer. So yes, that's something you're well aware of, and I think I already covered that. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I can answer any questions about, I tried to cover a lot of information there, but leave it to you.
Does anyone have any questions with respect to the handbook at this time? Seeing none, we will move into the orientation workshop. Director Piche, thank you for bearing with us. You could go through it now, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, and good evening to council. This is just verbal information for you. On Tuesday, November 2nd at 4 p.m., there will be a workshop that is facilitated by Transitional Solutions for the official council orientation. It will be held at the LMC in the Lacombe County room. And this orientation is required as per section 201.1 of the Municipal Government Act. That evening, council will work with Transitional Solutions to learn or review the following. It's the role of municipalities in Alberta, the municipal organization and its function, key municipal plans, policies, and projects, roles and responsibilities of council and councillors, the municipality's code of conduct, the roles and responsibilities of the chief administrative officer and staff, budgeting and finance administration, public participation, and any other topic prescribed by the MGA's regulations. The workshop will focus on the roles of elected officials and administration as it relates to day-to-day operations and long-term planning of a municipality. It will also review how council and administration can work together to achieve the benefits of the community that they serve. For the orientation, TSI has developed materials specific to the municipal governance that will be used to support the workshop. This training must be presented to council within 90 days after councillors take their oath of office. And also, just in case anyone wants to know, it does pertain to all councillors, even those who have been reelected and have already gone through this training. Along with this training, though, there is one other course that is a requirement for council, and it is the emergency training for municipal elected officials, or the MEO training. This also must be completed within 90 days from the time that you have been elected into office. This course is designed to provide councils with a background on emergency management principles, other key players in emergency management, and the legislation that delegates legal responsibilities to the local authority in emergency situations. The learning objectives of this course are to understand what emergency management is, consider the historical impact of disasters in Alberta, be familiar with emergency management partners, explore legislative responsibilities in emergency management, and consider the link between emergency management and safe and viable communities. There are two methods of delivery for this course. There is a self-directed online course that is 2 to 4 hours in length, depending how you read or take on information. The other is a facilitated PowerPoint that is actually 3 to 5 hours in length. So now administration can set each member of council up with online access to complete this course yourself, or if council prefers, we can arrange to have a facilitator to present the course within the 90-day time frame. If there are any questions, I am happy to take them now.
Thank you, Director Piché. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So sorry, the date for that orientation was November 4th?
Sorry, no, November 2nd at 4 p.m.
Okay, and sorry, at the LMC, was it?
At the LMC in the county room, yes.
And if one is not able to make that day, will there be alternate dates available later?
Not by Transitional Solutions, but we might have to look at a partner who would be able to facilitate it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Very good. So Councillor Hoekstra, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. The binder we have for council orientation, does that, do we take that to that November 2nd workshop?
I do know that they're going to be providing other information. You could have it there for yourselves as reference, but they will provide more information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Connick.
Sorry, Mayor Creasy. Director Piché, how long is that? Do you know roughly? Is it, did you say? Sorry.
It is planned for 4 hours, from 4
okay.
p.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Gowdy, I see that Director Piché has one more item here, 3.12. Is there any advantage of leaving it till the end, or in the interest of time?
Director Piché, is Tabitha on standby, or is she waiting until the end of the meeting?
I do know that she is on the call or on the video here. I can check with her briefly to see if she is ready.
Why don't you check with her and then message me on Teams while I present the CAO bylaw to see if she's able to move it up, if that's acceptable. Mayor Creasy?
That is acceptable, and rather than having staff wait around till the end, I think that would be good use of time. And I guess the other obvious question then would be, as far as communication support for Director Lapointe, is it your preference to have him wait until the end, or could he be adjusted perhaps to be after 312?
I believe he can be adjusted, but Director Lapointe, if you can just let me know your willingness there and ability via a message, then we will proceed accordingly after the CAO bylaw.
Very good. In the meantime, then you'll proceed with 3.3, bylaw 425.
Yes, thank you. Now, I should correct myself. One of my directors has pointed out to me that we do in fact have a statutorily adopted redevelopment plan, and that is the downtown area redevelopment plan. So my apologies for earlier saying we did not have redevelopment plans. There is one.
Very good.
Bylaw 425 is your CAO bylaw. It's one of the few required bylaws under the Municipal Government Act. I will go through, again, I'm going to stick, excuse me, to the heading titles, make a brief comment, and just stop me if there's anything that you'd like to discuss further. So the purpose of this bylaw, obviously it establishes the CAO position. There's a number of definitions. The office here at the city is called the Chief Administrative Officer, although you could adopt different names. The appointment here at the city is completed through a contract, an employment contract.
Point of order. We don't have that bylaw, at least I don't. I don't think Councillor Hoekstra has. Included in my package is 459 or something bylaw. Yeah, so we're not following along, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I was, my apologies. I in fact do have a hard copy. However, I was informed that the remainder was also available electronically. Obviously, it is not. So if we could just have our legislative coordinator point out where in fact we can access that information, and that way, should any councillors choose to follow along as you're going through the bylaw 425.
So if, I apologize. If you could pull up a web browser and search Lacombe bylaw 425, that will pull it up immediately. And I'll just give you a moment to do that. My apologies for the error there. Good to go? Okay, thank you.
Everyone's on board? Very good. Please proceed.
Accountability. The CAO is accountable to no individual member of council, but council as a whole. General, nothing important there. So the CAO is the administrative head of the city, and there are specific powers granted under the Municipal Government Act that are the CAOs. The authority of the Chief Administrative Officer is outlined in Section 9. And I won't go through each one, but I would say generally, the CAO is responsible for the operations and all staff of the municipality, as well as making sure that you are properly supported in delivering your function of policy level discussion, debate, amendment, and adoption. One of the important aspects here is that any information that is provided to an individual councillor about the operations of the municipality by the CAO must by law also be provided to all members of council to ensure that you have the same information and are making decisions based on that same information. The CAO has a number of financial powers and functions, including establishing fees, charges, rates, expenditure of up to $100,000 during declared emergencies that would exceed the overall budget of the municipality. And in your procurement policy, there is also the ability to modify between budget lines, ensuring that there's no change to the bottom line, that it remains a balanced budget. But the CAO does have the ability to vary between departments and budgets to achieve the council objectives. CAO is authorized to approve and enter into all agreements involving funding from the province, funding from the federal government, anything to do with development of subdivision and land, which is Part 17 of the Municipal Government Act, and the extension of subdivision plans. There are a number of other things, such as closing a highway on a temporary basis, that can be done by the CAO. And I think it's one of the most important is that the delegation of authority. CAO can delegate and does delegate any authority that is granted under the Act, that being the Municipal Government Act, or this bylaw. The CAO is the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection Head, or Protection of Privacy Head, as defined by the legislation. I am indemnified from personal liability, provided that I carry out my actions in good faith. And that is all that I will highlight on the CAO bylaw. Are there any questions on bylaw 425?
I do not believe that there are any.
All right. I did receive messages from both parties that they are able to advance, and they appreciate the thoughtfulness of staff time.
Very good. So perhaps we could move on to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act information outlined in item 3.12 then. I understand that Director Pichet, you will be leading that discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. It is actually our FOIP coordinator, Tabitha Robinson-Deutsch, will be presenting on that.
Very well. Tabitha, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Tabitha Robbins-Deutsch, and I am the Records Management and FOIP Coordinator for the City of Lacombe. The City of Lacombe came under the Alberta Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act in 1999. FOIP is one of the cornerstones of open, accessible, and accountable government, striking a balance between the public's right to know and the individual's right to privacy in relation to records in the custody or control of the city. Your information package contains the following items: FOIP Bulletin Number 6, Records of Elected and Appointed Officials of Local Public Bodies. FOIP Bulletin Number 12, Email, Access and Privacy Considerations. FOIP Frequently Asked Questions for Municipalities, the City of Lacombe FOIP By-Law 402, and the FOIP Act. So some items for Council to be aware of. As Matthew Gowdy said, the head of the public body for the City of Lacombe is the Chief Administrative Officer. We have a delegation and assignment of responsibility table that grants certain authority to the FOIP coordinator for specific duties, powers, or functions of the head of the public body as authorized under the FOIP Act. Emails to and from city email addresses are records in the custody and control of the city and are subject to FOIP. Text messages on city-owned devices are records in the custody and control of the city and are subject to FOIP. Agenda packages must not make disclosures that are harmful to business interests of a third party under Section 16 or harmful to personal privacy under Section 17 of the Act. Section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act states, councils and council committees may close all or part of their meetings to the public if a matter to be discussed is within one of the exceptions to disclosure in Division 2 of Part 1 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That is specifically FOIP Section 16 to 21 and 23 to 29. Minutes, notes, or any form of recorded information from an in-camera session is subject to FOIP and may be requested in a FOIP request. Although exceptions to disclosure do exist in the FOIP Act, no recording of information should take place in an in-camera session. Personal or constituency records of an elected official are excluded from the FOIP Act. Please see FOIP Bulletin Number 6 and the FAQ for municipalities for more details. The city's FOIP program provides training for managers, supervisors, and administrative staff that work with personally identifiable information and records as part of their duties. My door is always open to staff for questions about FOIP, privacy, and records management. Should Council have any questions about these topics, please contact the Chief Administrative Officer, Matthew Gowdy, and we will work together to get the answers to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabitha. We don't often get a chance to hear from you. And I think it takes a very special and well-organized person to perform the duties that you do. And we thank you for keeping it, all of us here at Council on track. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions this time. Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I am scrolling madly here, but I'm not finding what I was reading, but it had to do with, I'm always confused when citizens' names are redacted from documents and when they're not, because in my mind, and I'm probably incorrect, it seems inconsistent. And somewhere in the documents you gave us, it said that citizens should expect, if they are going to send a letter or something to the city, they should expect that their name or not personal information, but their name would be public. And so I was just curious about what is the rule of thumb about when do we see a citizen's name, when don't we? Email addresses are generally redacted. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So our general practice is that anybody who writes to council directly and is expecting to be heard in a public forum, their name will not be redacted. Anybody who is a third party or is not expecting their information to become public, their information will be redacted. And again, if council would like to see a particular item, we can put the item in camera so that all the personal information would be available, but it would not become public.
That offered the clarification that you're after. Very good. Anyone else? Thank you, Tabitha.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And from here, then we are good to move on to communication support. Director Lapointe, if you're available and ready to roll, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Creasy. And good evening, Council. You have in front of you a list of communication and community engagement supports available to you as City Councilors. Todd Vaughn, the Communication and Community Engagement Coordinator, is responsible for delivering these items in consultation with myself. So that includes facilitating media relations, speech writing, social media posts, budget engagement, and coffee with council and farmers market attendance coordination. These activities align with the city's public participation policy, which meets statutory requirements under the Alberta Municipal Government Act. The policy recognizes certain municipal decisions are enhanced by appropriately engaging a range of community stakeholders. This policy calls for a review every 3 years, so there will be an opportunity to discuss the policy during the upcoming strategic planning process and update the document to reflect a more current and local perspective if council so chooses. With that, I'm open to any questions or comments you may have regarding the communication and community engagement supports that are presented in front of you.
Thanks, Manager Lapointe. Does anyone have any questions for Director Lapointe at this time? I think you're being let off the hook fairly easily here, Director Lapointe, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Chief Gowdy, go ahead.
With your permission, it would be helpful to letting our staff get out early if we could jump to the organizational chart. I had planned to introduce the directors while they were on the line, which I forgot earlier. If I could move us ahead briefly to that, then they could enjoy the evening.
Absolutely. Let's move on to item 3.9 then.
So if you turn to the organizational chart in your binder, we have a list of the city's different divisions and departments. And so when you hear me refer to divisions, I'm referring to the directorate of the corporate services, which is the corporate services division, the directorate of the operation and planning division, and the community services division. And so I'll just briefly introduce the directors of those various directorates. So first, Director Jordan Thompson. Mr. Thompson is responsible for the majority of our utilities, including regional utility provision. He also looks after our roads, is responsible for the engineering services and delivery of all capital related project, not all capital, all major construction related projects within the municipality. And of course, he has a myriad of professional staff to support him in delivering. Jordan's been with us approximately 10 years coming up right away, and has a background in civil engineering technology. Moving from Jordan, we have Miss Pichet, who you have met earlier this evening. Diane has been with the city approximately 23 years, and her areas of responsibility include bylaw enforcement, fire services, emergency services. She is our designated liaison, including with myself for the Lacombe Police Commission and Police Service. And she's also responsible for our records management, data integrity, and information services technology.
Chief Gowdy, just for the benefit of those watching at home and for our new counselor, the official title
is the Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you.
Did I say community services earlier? Is that what happened? I'm sorry. Sorry, Diane. Our Director of Community Services is Guy Lapointe. Guy has also been with the city for approximately 10 years. Started out in our economic development area, and has grown that to be a cross-departmental function, that a torch which has been picked up throughout the organization. He's recently been promoted to the Community Services Director, where he's responsible for our facilities, our recreation and culture activities, and our arts functions within the municipality, as well as communications and consultation on community initiatives. Thank you, Guy. Our Director Lapointe. Oh, and the airport, I'm sorry. Airport, library, FCSS as well. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any questions about the organizational structure of the city of Lacombe, as you see it there in the chart?
I expect it was an oversight, given that Senior Manager McKinnon will appear later.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had planned. Yes.
Yep, very good. That's fine. Does anyone have any questions about any of those directorates? Very good. So we move back up to our list, I believe, to our procedural bylaw 370, where we're at. Chief Gowdy.
Thank you. So your procedural bylaw is another required bylaw under the Municipal Government Act, and it was reviewed thoroughly last term. Given the direction we've received this evening for a change in time, I expect there will be an opportunity for a thorough review and any amendments that you may desire early in this term as well. So I won't go through in a great amount of detail, a number of definitions, of course. I will jump to 6.1, the rules of order. So there's a couple of things that I will highlight here. There's a kind of a nice statement that I've always liked here, that the conduct of all city business is controlled by the general will of council and committee members, the right of the majority to decide, accompanied by the right of the minority to require the majority to decide only after a full and fair deliberation. At no time is it intended under this procedural bylaw that undue strictness of adherence to the rules of order intimidate members or limit full participation. So they're not to be used as a stick to embarrass others or to limit their input. In the city of Lacombe, council meetings, the first person to raise a hand and attract the attention of the chair when the person speaking is finished and to be recognized by the chair has the floor. Speaking while another is still speaking is out of order unless you're making a point of order or to make a point of privilege. Again, I think that's something that was well adhered to in the last term and led to some constructive debates on difficult issues. I won't go into a lot of detail. One important factor is that the chair Mayor Creasy in our case is not able to make motions, and no speaker shall be interrupted by a private conversation or comments, again, unless it's a point of order or a point of privilege. We don't allow shouting, use of profane, vulgar, or offensive language, or to speak on a matter that has not been included on the agenda ahead of time. In-camera discussions are only for items that are contained within the MGA for acceptable practices within in-camera, and it's not a free-for-all to discuss anything on anyone's mind, I guess. If there is such a discussion to be had, it should be added to the agenda at the front of the meeting and receive unanimous consent. Agendas are released on Thursday afternoon, preceding the Monday evening council meeting. We require that any items to be included on the council agenda be received up to Tuesday noon prior to the meeting. So if you are giving me items to include on council agenda or you're receiving them from the public, we need to have them in hand or in inbox Tuesday by noon, or else we cannot guarantee them being included on the meeting. Speakers shall raise their hand to be recognized by the chair, and after being acknowledged by the chair shall then have the floor. Respect for all participants and guests shall be shown at all times, so there'll be no side comments or private conversations. When addressing any participants in a meeting, the use of official titles is required. And so that is Councillor Connick, CAO Gowdy, Mr. Bond, in this case. And that's just a decorum to acknowledge that these are important decisions and that you're representing a number of people who expect consideration and due diligence as you're leading the community. The open forum is something that was added at the last council term, and it wasn't actually used a lot during the term, maybe a handful of times, but it is a nice tool that you can offer individual residents where they're able to come and have 5 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to address council on any topic they like that is not on the agenda that evening. And that's important. If it is on the agenda that evening, they're not permitted to speak at that time, and they can only speak to a topic once every 6 months.
Chief Gowdy, with respect to that item, I think initially it was our practice to not televise open forum. And I just wanted to get an indication from council if that was our intent. In my opinion, I think that for anyone that so chooses to address council as a whole, I think there is a fair and reasonable expectation that that ought to be given out to the public and made available to the public the same way in which our meetings are. And I think that it would be my preference to see that that is done in the future. What's council's thoughts? Councillor Connick.
I would agree with that, Mayor Creasy. And with respect to that, how does that camera swivel down to that main chair there where they might be presenting, or how does that work? Or is that another camera yet, or we got to figure that all out?
That's another camera to come, I believe.
That's got some very unique capabilities, but I do not believe that that is suitable for viewing that chair.
We'll make arrangements to make sure that the presenters are visible on the video stream though.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I have concerns about it being televised, streamed, because it's not actually part of a public meeting. It happens prior to a meeting being called. So my concern with that is if they're wanting it to be a public presentation, then they would make a formal presentation within the body of our meetings. If it's an open forum, to me, that's more of an informal opportunity for engagement. And I don't think that it should be public, I guess, like streamed, I guess. And not to say that it's necessarily a bad thing, but if you're wanting that, honestly, I think that that should now become incorporated into the body of a meeting. I would actually not like to see that, but it's not that there's not valuable information perhaps in an open forum discussion, but yeah, I guess I would ask council to consider that might not actually be what the purpose of that is. And also, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But I am not in favor of that being live streamed. It's not a part of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbs. It certainly isn't part of the general meeting. You're 100% right. It does occur prior. For that reason, it is not part of it. However, it was, I guess, just to let everybody know where my thinking was, quite often the subject matter that is brought forward to those open forums is of interest to far more citizens than just the ones that choose to present. I think probably the thing that highlighted it for me was during our pandemic times when other people could not attend and there was some difficulty with electronic means and that type of thing. I think this is just one more way and also provides easy access to what was said down the road so that everybody can be accountable for what they do say and keep information accurate was my thinking. But by all means, you're certainly right. That is not part of the meeting and that is not my intent to make it a part of the public meeting. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I have no problem with it being live streamed. I have concern about timing because it's supposed to start before our meeting is officially to start. So if that's the case, how many people would watch it anyway? I guess it would be on record is the key that you're thinking, right? And but I have no problem with that. If they wish to come forward, I think it should be at least recorded and then part of the record for the meeting. Or we have them start at 5 o'clock. To say, you know, because we have had that in the past where it started at 5 for one person to come and speak, it's 5 minutes. And then it would be fine. But if it starts at, 4:45 or even 4:50, if there's 2 presentations, then it would be an issue for me that, it just that there wouldn't be anybody watching.
Fair comment, just so we're not confused with timing, given that we did make an adjustment to our meeting schedule. Your point is taken prior to, but in fact, we have to add half an hour onto those times, correct? Okay. So I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that it was a positive initiative by this council to put forward the open forum and these slight adjustments that we do as we move forward, I think is in all of our best interest and certainly the community. So whatever we choose to do as far as the timing end of it, that was made for a perfectly good reason to change the meeting time. I would suggest that thankfully it has not been an issue where we have so many that this does become an issue. I think that perhaps I have been a little generous with time more than the intention 5 minutes. However, the vast majority have been fairly respectful of that time limit, but your point is well taken. And if it is only 1 or 2 to start a few minutes later, I think still falls within the time realm that was initially put forward by the mover. Does it not, Councillor Connick? Okay. But in any event, your points are well taken. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just one more final comment as well. We talk about this being public, but they're not really on public record exactly. Informally, they are. They wouldn't be part of the minutes. They shouldn't be part of the minutes as they're not part of the meeting and therefore not part of the official public record. They are only public as in it would potentially exist on a video recording. But and I think that is an important distinction. Yeah, I won't repeat the rest.
Just to your point, there is a maximum of 3 allowed at any given meeting. We only had that happen one time in the last term, and other than that, it was 1 or 0. And there is a specific clause to not record those in the minutes as well. One other important item is that the mayor is the official spokesperson of council. And so if you choose to speak to members of the media or make public statements about an issue, you do so at your own peril and could be reprimanded, I suppose, is through the code of conduct bylaw. No special interests are to be promoted above council's adopted objectives. And once a decision is made of council, it is expected that council will support and carry that decision into the community, explaining the reasons why. Even if they don't personally support it, it's perfectly fine to say that you don't personally support it, but you should be providing the information as to why the majority of council did support it in a respectful and true manner. I believe that covers, actually the other important aspect of the procedural bylaw is notices of motion. Excuse me, notices of motion. So I'm going to use an example here whereby someone would like to adopt a new aspect to the procedural bylaw that isn't in place right now. And if I could, I will use Councillor Connick as the person. He is familiar with notices of motion because of his time on council. So Councillor Connick would note an issue that he'd like action on, say a policy amendment, and he would send to me, ideally ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, but actually the way it's written, even during a meeting, Councillor Connick could submit something to me in writing that says, I'd like to place a notice of motion on this agenda that says amend the procedural bylaw by making each open forum presentation have 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes. So upon receiving that notice of motion, we will enter it onto the agenda of the meeting. Again, in theory, it can be done at a live meeting. That hasn't usually been our practice. It's much easier if it's ahead of time. Then we include it on that agenda. And it is a notice to everyone here, as well as the public, that at the next meeting, there will be a debate about that motion. So it's a notice that at the next meeting, I'm going to put this motion on the floor for debate and decision. So upon receiving that, I put it on the next council agenda as a notice of motion. And then the following council meeting is when the debate and decision occurs. In some instances, the nature of the change being requested is a bylaw change. Bylaws require 3 readings, and under the Municipal Government Act, 3 readings, except under extraordinary circumstances, 3 readings cannot be done at one meeting. And so if it's a bylaw change that was being requested by Councillor Connick, it's actually going to take potentially 3 meetings for that to happen. Actually, even 4 potentially, where he's going to submit a notice of motion that says, I want the procedural bylaw changed to allow 10 minutes. Then at the next meeting, if it's simple like that, council may decide, yes, go ahead with a first reading with a 10-minute thing included. And then at a following meeting, we would do second and third reading potentially. If it's a more complex issue, it may be that first debate on the motion is actually whether or not even to open up a bylaw amendment. And so it may be that council says, yeah, we do want to proceed with that. Draft a bylaw that incorporates these changes, the 10 minutes and whatnot. Then we would come back and present a first reading of the bylaw. And then at a subsequent meeting, there would be a second and third reading of the bylaw. So it can be a very slow process. It can feel very slow, but it is intended to give members of the community and other councillors a chance to understand what's being proposed, consult on it, make an informed decision, and then come back and vote on that decision. So can take time, but it has led, I would say, to better decisions than if you were to try to make them on the fly. And certainly it leads to a more transparent process for the public because they're able to see that things are being considered in a stepwise process and they have a chance for input. Now, typically we try to structure our strategic plan, which is later on the agenda, such that we don't have a lot of notices of motion, that councillors are seeing their objectives and their priorities moving ahead at a reasonable pace. But sometimes extenuating circumstances or changing circumstances in the community or legislation requires a different process, and that's when notices of motion come into play. Any questions or comments on the procedural bylaw?
Thanks, Chief Gowdy. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. So getting back to, did you say that we will be in the near future talking about or looking to make amendments to the procedural bylaw?
I think we should.
Just getting back to this open televising or live streaming, this open forum. And
So
I'm guessing that's something we're not going to do tonight, but how soon we'll be looking at the bylaw?
I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to have the procedural bylaw back for comments from council and some preliminary direction prior this year, prior to Christmas. So I think, yeah, it would be right away that we'd be looking at changing those dates or the times. We'll bring up this idea of presenting or not presenting. And there'll be an opportunity for any other changes that council would like to make or that we might have noticed things that could be streamlined.
Thank you. Council, just after 7 p.m. Any desire for a short recess or continue on with the next item? What's your preference? I see some indication for a short break, so we will reconvene 7:06 at 7:15. Thank you. It is now 7:15 and we will reconvene. Chief Gowdy, I believe we were down to the strategic plan, item 3.5.
The current strategic plan is included there. There is a list of completed items, and those items that have not been completed will be included for your consideration at your upcoming strategic planning session, which I was just reminded is in December by Councillor Gullickson. That is how we attempt to coalesce council's sometimes varying priorities into a cohesive work plan that we can assign resources to and try to work through over the term. And there is annual updates completed to the strategic plan. So there's ongoing opportunity for council to reprioritize, add new priorities, or delete old priorities. I won't go through it in detail at this time, though.
Thanks, Chief Gowdy. I was just going to say, given that we will have a more focused session on that very topic in the not too distant future, is there any glaring omissions or errors or anything anyone would like to bring up with regards to our strategic plan? Councillor Conick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Sorry, the dates for that, did we talk about those yet, or have we got an idea when those are yet, or no?
So if
Chief Gowdy?
you go to item 3.10, there is a upcoming events tab in your red binder. And there's a list of all upcoming events for council. I can go through those now if you would prefer, rather than waiting till item 3.10.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Sure. October 18th, the election date. I don't know if that was necessary. I'll start with the November 2nd, council orientation workshop and the corporate leadership team. So that is a requirement of the Municipal Government Act. If you are unable to attend this workshop, we will attempt to arrange for you to attend an alternate date or setting, but you will be doing so individually. Please let me know sooner than later if you are unable to. Privately is fine, and we can begin looking for a date or venue that works for you. The budget workshop, day one is now November 5th. That will be an all-day workshop on the 5th. All day, but I believe it's a Friday, so we're going to end it a little bit early. Therefore, November 8th will not be a budget workshop as per your direction earlier. There will be a council meeting on November 8th. No, I'm sorry, there still is a budget workshop planned for the 1st. I'm sorry, I'm going to confirm those details and I will get them out to you later on. There's a budget workshop day 3 placeholder. We did not require that last term, and I don't anticipate it being needed here this term, but it is held. AUMA is the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association. That is a convention for elected officials and senior staff. It will be just me this event. And that is in Edmonton. You have booking, you have been booked, you have hotels booked. If you are unable to make that event, no problem. Please let me know sooner than later, and we can, well, we actually can't get any of the money back, but we'll do whatever we can to soften the blow. There's a council meeting on the 22nd, budget deliberations by council. So your first official at a council meeting deliberation will be on November 22nd. So that will be the operating and capital budget. It says adoption. Might be optimistic. Usually there's 1 or 2 back and forths, but you never know. We have that joint council meeting that I referred to earlier on December 1st. And we have the strategic planning retreats on December 3rd, which I believe is a Friday, 4 to 8. And December 4th, which is a Saturday from 8:30 to 4:30. December 6th is another, yes, that's right, council meeting. And the other council meetings are as you adopted earlier this evening.
Chief Cuddy, we can expect calendar invites for all of these various things coming out in relatively soon, I expect, from legislative coordinator. Similarly, as there was with meetings, or are we going to leave it up to everyone to?
I understood that they had gone out actually, but maybe I misunderstood.
Meeting dates, I believe, did, but I do not think that the extra dates have. In any event, for
I
the ones that haven't.
apologize. They certainly will go
Okay.
out if they haven't been sent out.
Mayor Creasy,
Go ahead, Coordinator Bellabono.
we were just waiting for the approval of the dates before we sent all the calendar invites for the events, in case any were changed.
That would be a great reason why we haven't seen them. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's any questions or comments on those dates, I can take them, and then I would go back to the Council Code of Conduct bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I was just noticing, yes, that AUMA is listed for 3 days. I just don't remember it being 3 full days, but is it in fact 3 full days? Okay, so typically we've gone up the Tuesday night then and then remained. Okay, sorry, Councillor Ross, you were correct.
Are there any other date-related items for discussion? Were we waiting on just on some direction of this, or just general approval? Because that's what Coordinator Bellabono was waiting for the to issue all of the calendar invites. Okay, thank you. So very good. Let's continue on with the next item that you just referred to, that I've conveniently forgotten what it was.
Council's Code of Conduct is bylaw 459. This is another of the required bylaws under the Municipal Government Act. And it outlines the expectations of council's representation of the municipality, your adherence to procedures, policies, and bylaws, your limitation to providing any sort of direction or requests for information to the CAO and not to other staff. So I will just highlight that. Under 8.6, and this is directly out of the MGA, members must not give any directions to any employee or contractor of the city other than the CAO, either publicly or privately. They must not involve themselves in matters of administration which fall within the jurisdiction of the CAO. And obviously you can't use your position to influence or harm someone professionally or personally. You will be privy to confidential information, particularly as it relates to in-camera discussions, and you must hold those in strict confidence. Any conflicts of interest that are as outlined in the Municipal Government Act must be disclosed, and failure to do so could result in your disqualification from council. You are not permitted to use municipal assets or services that could be seen or could actually be a benefit to you or your family. You must attend orientation and other required training, and there's a formal complaint process outlined. Compliance and enforcement is available for members that deviate from the standards outlined in the Code of Conduct. And these include a potential letter of reprimand addressed to the member from council, a request that the member issue a letter of apology. They don't actually have to, but you can request that they do so. Publication of a letter of reprimand or request for apology and the member's response. Suspension or removal of the appointment of a member as the deputy chief elected official or acting chief elected official under section 152. So removing you from the rotation there. Suspension or removal of the chief elected official's presiding duties under section 154 of the Act. So if the mayor were found to be in contempt of this bylaw, in theory, a new chair could be elected. Suspension or removal of some or all council committees and bodies to which council has the right to appoint members. So you could be removed as the council's representative on things like the Lacombe District Recreation and Culture Board or the Police Commission or whatever it may be. Any other sanction council deems reasonable and appropriate in the circumstances, provided the sanction does not prevent a member from fulfilling the legislative duties of a councillor and the sanction is not contrary to the act. In practice, there really is no other sanctions other than those ones listed above. There's no ability to curtail wages or voting privileges or attendance of in-camera components of meetings or anything like that. You are members of council or equals. The mayor position is first amongst equals, but they are all equal positions. And there is not the ability of the majority of council to restrict governing power of the minority of council for obvious reasons. Is there any question about council's code of conduct bylaw? Moving to council policies, there are a few specific council policies which are particular to members of the council. One is the citizen request and response policy. This essentially outlines the city's approach to receiving complaints about staff or any request for information or request for action. The city generally, over the last term, we adopted a practice called the request for information, whereby either councillor or citizen can submit a request for information or action or any sort of request that they deem appropriate. City administration will then process that request. Often that involves multiple departments or managers, and so it does take some time to make sure we're getting fulsome responses to you. But you will get a written response to every inquiry that is made, as will residents in the community. It is actually the same process for residents and for councillor. So you're not actually getting special treatment on the request for information side of things. We provide that to administration as well. Is everyone good with this information? I'm seeing that maybe it wasn't included. I'm sorry.
No, it was hard copy. It's fine.
Okay. So if you have a request for information, please send it in. However, as I outlined earlier, know that it is our legal responsibility to share information about the operations of the municipality with other members of council. So if you're asking a question, it is almost certain that others will see that question. So I would encourage you to form it appropriately for that audience, I guess. The next is council remuneration and expenses. This is what sets the salary and the employment conditions of council's remuneration. This was adopted, or an amended copy was adopted September 13th after review of compensation levels for the mayor and council. Compensation for the city's, I would say the most important but relevant component. Compensation for the city's chief elected official, or the mayor, is 40% of the highest step in the salary band of the CAO. The compensation for other members of city council is 40% of the chief elected officials. We do not have per diems. Travel and subsistence. Reasonable expenses are covered for travel and subsistence when representing the city on city business, and specifically the FCM conference and the AUMA conference. Annually, there's the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association convention. This is typically in Edmonton or Calgary, and we send the entire council every year. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities occurs across Canada, and generally we send the mayor and two councillors to that every year. so that every member of council has an opportunity to participate in one federation of Canadian municipalities during the term, should they choose. Is that accurate?
Most
Years.
terms, it certainly is a little unusual the last couple of years, but absolutely, you're 100% correct. Otherwise,
There is an iPad tablet usage policy. Be responsible and respectful with your city issued equipment. That's what I would say there. The city's public consultation policy follows. This is another legislatively required policy. And while ours meets the standard required by the Municipal Government Act, I believe there is room for improvement in adapting it to a more Lacombe tailored approach that has some more specific targets. It's very generic. And so we'll be recommending that you look at that over this next term, that we would adopt some more specific guidelines around our consultation policy. Also included there are 2 public participation policies in your hard copy. And one of them is not valid, or one of the ones in mine at least. There is one from 2009, this one, it looks like. Yes, you could just take that out and remove it. I'm not sure how it got in there. What I'm guessing has happened is that this was to be rescinded with the adoption of the public participation policy, but that never happened. And so we are left with 2 policies that overlap. So we'll definitely be looking at that in the first year of the term. It is the public participation policy that I was referring to. This public consultation policy actually is just not that.
Chief Gowdy, so with respect to that public consultation that has the dark identification logo halfway down on the left-hand side, and then is that up to and including the neighboring properties consultation, town of Lacombe sheet is the final sheet, which is about the 10th of that package?
Yes.
That is obviously meant to be removed in its entirety, correct?
Yes, from this blue logo all the way to town of Lacombe neighboring properties consultation. I should correct myself so that I'm not throwing staff. I don't actually think this is wrongly included. I think that it should have been rescinded upon adoption of the public participation policy in 2018, and that rescindment was incorrectly missed. So we will look to rescind this policy shortly. Good. So there's a public participation policy. There is your procurement policy, which you just adopted in September. There's the recording of council meetings policy. That is just to advise people that we do record and publish our council meetings. There is a policy on the recognition of departing council members. And that's for things like buying old equipment, the iPads, that sort of thing. There's corporate identity policy, which basically says you are not permitted to use the city's logos without approval. And so please don't do that. Check with us first. And that's all of the policies that we've highlighted there.
Thank you. We're sort of muttering here, so I thought I'll speak out loud. The recognition of departing council members policy. I don't think I've ever seen it. And it said something about a group photo. I was just curious. I don't think we've ever received a group photo. No, just, no. Do we have to leave first?
If I'm being totally honest, I actually was not completely aware of that either. And so I would have to review to see exactly what our obligations are. I wasn't aware that a policy was passed for something so specific in the past, but we will have a look and make sure we're abiding by it.
Which policy are we on now, or are we just? That's it. We're gonna go, not gonna, okay, fair enough. Does anyone have any burning questions or input on any of those policies that we have touched on briefly? I'd like everybody to keep in mind that if there's any moving forward, certainly bring them forward to myself if you prefer, or to Chief Gowdy, and one way or another we will see that your concerns are addressed with all of them. Not unlike our other documentation, the city, it is a lengthy process keeping track of all of these policies, and I think there's perhaps a couple in here that very few people realize even existed. So it's nice to bring them out and we can go through them, and if there's any adjustments that need to be made as we go through the next term, then we will do so. I see no questions, so let's move on to the summary of commissions, boards, and committees, Chief Gowdy.
So over the last term, we went through a fairly comprehensive review of council's committees. And so many of our councillors are quite familiar with those committees. I would encourage yourself to take a look at the council committee's review. There is links and quite a bit of extensive information about each one of the committees, including the ones you've been appointed to. And of course, I would be happy to sit at any time to go through that detailed information. At this time, I'm going to go through a high level of the different committees and just stop me if there's any questions. Externally, the city sits on the Central Alberta Regional Trails Initiative. This is a group of people who looks at the interconnectedness of trails within Central Alberta and opportunities to develop continuous linkages between communities in Central Alberta, as well as promote the tourism benefits and some of the regional benefits of trails within the Central Alberta region. Next up is the Echolocom Association. I spoke briefly of them earlier. They're the city's economic development and community development arm. They receive funding from the utility accounts of those community members who are served by Eco Energy, both for electricity, natural gas, and now internet service. The profit generated by that utility, those utility activities, is retained in Echolocom and used to fund and kickstart various community initiatives, such as the Stage or the world's largest fish hook and some of those sorts of things. Family and Community Support Services Board, FCSS, looks at providing social programming within the city of Lacombe and Lacombe County. They currently operate out of Lacombe Memorial Center, and they do serve a number of communities within our area. There's an intermunicipal development plan committee that also manages the intermunicipal collaboration framework. This group looks at issues of mutual interest with Lacombe County and ensures that development on the boundary of the two municipalities is in the best interest of both parties. We do have a shared joint economic agreement that is covered by the intermunicipal development plan area, and all development within that joint economic agreement. There is tax sharing between Lacombe County and the city of Lacombe. So if you see development occurring outside around Highway 2 and 12 intersection, for example, the city benefits from all development within that area. The next is the Lacombe and District Rikubitsu Friendship Society. This is a longstanding city-town twinning that occurs with a community called Rikubitsu or actually it's Rikubitsu in Japan. Unfortunately, for various reasons, it has not gone ahead for the last couple of years. But typically, there is a cultural exchange that occurs almost always from Japan to the city of Lacombe, and periodically a delegation from Lacombe to the town of Rikubitsu in Japan. There's the Lacombe County Fire Services Advisory Committee. This, as the name would suggest, is focused on fire services within Lacombe County and the interrelation it plays with the city of Lacombe. The Lacombe Days Committee is an external committee to the city of Lacombe, but we do have a member, and actually the last few years we had a couple of members, but I believe Councillor Connick is our designated representative going forward. And they do planning, obviously, for Lacombe Days. Planning and execution, I should say.
Chief Cuddy, I think that's one of those areas that citizens may seem is a little confusing, given by the extensive involvement of two other councillors, Councillors Ross and Councillor Cullickson, and by appointing an additional councillor to that, I think there might be some confusion, but that's not meant to change that dynamic there. It was simply a matter of adjusting those appointments to suit community overall. And it is my hope, or my expectation and sincere hope, that all those individuals will still work on that committee because of its importance to our community.
Well said. The Lacombe Foundation is responsible for managing affordable housing developments, some affordable housing developments within the city of Lacombe. There is a number of affordable housing delivery methods that occur within the city, and so they used to be, I would argue, by far the main, maybe only manager of affordable housing within the town of Lacombe. But now there is a number of other agencies that, including, what's the one that I'm thinking of, that built the duplexes, very famous, Volunteer, Habitat for Humanity, thank you. Sorry, it slipped my mind, and a number of others. There is a committee that has recently been formed from an ad hoc committee into a permanent committee, which is called the Affordable Housing Steering Committee or Strategy Steering Committee. And that is focused on all affordable housing opportunities within the city of Lacombe. The Lacombe Foundation is more specific to a portion of them, I guess is the best way I can put it.
Mayor Creasy, if I may.
Certainly, Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just to that, like, will these all be cleaned up? Like, they say they've been updated October 25th. And yet it still talks about affordable housing as an ad hoc committee. And then, of course, everyone's moved, so there's different councillors in different positions. Like, is this is not the final version, is it?
Which are you referring to? I'm sorry.
Well, all these committees, all of them.
So those are the reviews that were done. They should reflect council's decision on things like making the affordable housing strategy permanent committee I can't promise that anything wasn't missed in a update.
Yeah, well, when I read it, it still talks about an ad hoc, that it's an ad hoc committee. Yeah, so,
I will make sure to update that. We intended to, but must have missed that component.
that and like, are you gonna change all the names for everybody? Like I'm not on affordable housing, but it says I am. Or is that, or would it be just better served just to put city representative? Otherwise, you're gonna be changing it all the time. Like, I don't know what the solution is.
Well, this is not a live document. The review report is not a live
Okay,
living thing. So it was more to, because this work was done and there's the links to all the stuff. We did try to update it with some of the decisions council made, but we missed some of them. But really, this won't be recreated again. It's just for your reference. So I apologize that was missed. The Lacombe Regional Airport Committee is, as you would expect, they look after the viability of the airport within Lacombe. Lacombe Regional Tourism and Marketing Association is a group that is focused on local and regional tourism and drawing people into Lacombe. It is a group largely made up of industry representatives, and the city has a seat there. The Lacombe Regional Waste Services Commission looks after municipal solid waste within the Lacombe region, and we are a member. The North Red Deer we are a member only. It is an independent operation. The North Red Deer Wastewater Services, I believe that's actually North Red Deer Regional Wastewater Services Commission, is an agency, a board that manages the provision of wastewater services to the towns of Ponoka. Sorry, not to Ponoka, actually. The town of Black Falls, the city of Lacombe, and portions of Lacombe County. The city of Lacombe operates and administrates the commission. The North Red Deer River Water Services Commission does include the town of Ponoka, the county of Ponoka, Lacombe County, the city of Lacombe, the town of Black Falls, connecting to the city of Red Deer. And there, again, the city of Lacombe manages and administrates the commission, including this is inspection of the line, maintenance and operations of the various lift stations and pump houses that exist in the other communities. So we do actually have operators that are in the city of Red Deer, the town of Black Falls, Lacombe County on a daily basis. The Parkland Regional Library is a regional library system of which the city's library system is a member, and they provide services such as ebooks and interlibrary transfers and administrative services to the various libraries within the Parkland region, which is quite a large region of central Alberta. Actually, like border to border, I believe it is. I am moving to our internal boards, commissions, and committees. There's the Heritage Resource Committee. Recently, council elected to make this a citizen-only committee, and they look at the identification and preservation of historically significant buildings within the community. The Lacombe Art Collection Committee is a group that looks at the acquisition of public art. Specifically, they make the decisions about what public art to buy for the city's collection. The Lacombe Arts Endowment Committee is a group that distributes the interest funds from a fund that is held by the Red Deer and District Community Foundation on our behalf, I should say. The interest from that fund is distributed in grants by the Arts Endowment Committee. Lacombe Library Board guides the direction and strategic objectives of the Mary C. Moore Public Library System here in town. The Lacombe Police Commission governs the Lacombe Police Service and identifies their priorities and budget requests, manages their budget. The Municipal Planning Commission is the development authority for discretionary permits within the city of Lacombe. And so they make decisions on any variances from standard protocol that exceed 15% or any discretionary uses that are approved in the city of Lacombe. So if there's a new industry proposing to locate somewhere, it's likely that the Municipal Planning Commission would look at that and determine the conditions under which that could be approved. The Lacombe District Recreation, Parks and Culture Board makes advisements to the city of Lacombe and Lacombe County on matters impacting recreation, parks, and culture within the community. And we have been moving to give them more empowerment for things like selecting specific playground equipment or making advisements on priorities that council should consider for recreation, parks, and culture within the community. They are our designated consultation arm for those facets. There is a regional intermunicipal subdivision development and development appeal board. We recently joined the regional model after holding our own for years. The provincial government required certain training standard to be met for SDAB members, which was a great idea, actually. And maintaining that in our municipality when we often would get 1 or 0 appeals per year actually became difficult and costly. And so we have joined a regional board that maintains that training, and we pay a fee. And if and when we get appeals, they hear it completely independently of the municipality. Now, I think I have touched on all, but I bet not. Sorry, there's the Council Remuneration Review Committee, and they look at all things compensation for council and make advisements to council for changes. There's the Emergency Management Advisory Committee, which is a statutorily required committee that looks at emergency preparedness within the community. And there's the Lacombe Regional Emergency Management Partnership, a partnership of 10 or 11 municipalities, I think, that have committed to support each other in the case of an emergency within their area. I will just double check that I have not missed any boards or committees. I don't think I have, unless council noted any that I missed.
Well, we're considering that. Do you want to have any questions or comments about any of those committees that Chief Administrative Officer Gowdy went through? You did such a great job of going through those. They're not going to saddle you with any questions. So we briefly touched on some of the individuals from the organizational chart. Did you want to go through the chart itself at this time?
I don't think that I need to. I was remiss earlier, however, in not identifying Senior Manager of Financial Services, Tracy McKinnon. That was unintentional. So I apologize, Senior Manager McKinnon. And she has joined us actually just within the last year from the city of Red Deer. And she is responsible for the utilities billing side, all accounting and financial matters within the city, including property tax and assessment. So she'll be briefly presenting later this evening on just giving you the operating budget and 3-year operating plan. But my apologies again for that inadvertent oversight. Other than that, I will not highlight anything other than to point out some of these boxes, although they look one box, some of them represent 5, 7, 10 people. So don't judge each division just based on the number of boxes. It's about the services that are provided in each one of those divisions.
Thanks, Chief Gowdy. And also, we did touch on some of the upcoming events, but was there, do we want to go through that as well?
I think we got the direction we needed there, and I will be responding to you early this week about our ability, and I should say your ability, to accommodate the requested change to the budget workshop.
One more call for additional concerns or comments. I guess, in fact, on any of the information, which was extensive that we went through here. I want just to caution everybody once again, this is not like this is the one and only opportunity to go through questions for it. That's an ongoing thing, given the volume. I know everybody spent lots of time over the weekend going through it, but there is a great deal of information to absorb. So if you have any questions or concerns moving forward, certainly bring them forward to administration or myself, whichever you found. And not that I'll necessarily have all the answers, but I can certainly make sure that you receive the information that you require. So I believe that's all that we had for the information portion of the agenda. You had suggested that you had left out Senior Manager McKinnon, but in fact, she's extra special because she gets her own section here under reports to committee for the 3-year operating budget and operating plan. So Senior Manager McKinnon, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Tonight, I am presenting a proposed 2022 operating budget for the City of Lacombe. On August 16th, Council provided direction to administration to prepare the 2022 budget with a 2.7% tax rate increase and a 1% special paving tax. The proposed 2022 revenue budget does include the 2.7% tax rate increase, 1% special paving tax, and a 2.7% utility rate increase. These increases fall within the Alberta Consumer Price Index limits set by the Council policies. If you want to see a comparison of the total budget changes by major expense or revenue category, shown in Appendix 1. 3 main expenditure changes for 2022 include personnel, agency requests, and reserve contributions. For personnel, the city's compensation policy ties the staff cost of living allowance adjustment to the Consumer Price Index as of July 1st for Alberta. Council's preliminary direction on August was to provide a 2% cost of living allowance. After completing the preliminary budget, administration recommends including a 2.2% cost of living allowance in the final budget. In 2021, a salary survey was conducted to review compensation of 11 comparable municipalities for both council and staff. The council policy was amended and salary adjustments have been included in the budget. An adjustment to the city's salary bands to reflect the median of the comparable municipalities has also been included in the draft budget. The benefit costs have also risen due to increases in CPP deductibles, health premiums, and short-term disability premiums. Appendix 2 shows a comparison of the departmental wages and benefit budget in 2022 compared to 2021. The second expense is community groups. Community groups presented to Council on September 27th and October 4th. Their requests have been included and in the proposed 2022 operating budget that is presented today. And Appendix 3 shows a comparison of the grants to organizations requested for 2022 compared to 2021. Lastly, reserve contributions, another major expense change. Administration has increased reserve contributions in the 2022 budget to minimize future borrowing. The proposed transfers to tax supported reserves has increased by approximately 520,000 from the 2021 budget. The 1% special paving tax is offset by an equivalent $150,000 increase in the transfer to the roads reserve. The other significant increase is the transfer to the general capital reserve, which is the funding source for many capital projects identified in the capital plan. Appendix 4 shows a comparison of the transfers to reserves from 2022 to 2021 budgets. This evening, each council member will receive a binder with the operating and capital budget details. The next step in the budget process is the budget workshop scheduled for November 5th, 8th, 9th. Council will begin to deliberate the 2022 operating and capital budgets on November 22nd, with an adoption either on that date or on the following meeting in December 6th, 2021 meeting. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the 2022 budget.
Thank you, Senior Manager McKinnon. So with that general overview, does anyone have any questions at this time? I see none. Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate your time and thank you for staying late the evening.
No problem. Thank you.
So in order to accommodate everyone, we did jump around a little bit on the agenda. Does anyone see any items that we have omitted, or that I have omitted rather? I don't believe that there were, but certainly bring them forward now if they were, and if not, I think that takes us down to section 5 for in camera. Prior to doing motion required for that, however, our regular meetings, I believe that the time on these is changing to 5:30. However, the date of November 8th and November 22nd for regular council meetings, once again at 5:30 p.m. Have not changed. So those are still valid. And ones that are in our immediate future. So certainly see that those are added to your calendars. And I believe that concludes our public portion of the meeting. I could have a motion. Consideration of item number 5, please. Councillor Gullickson.
I'll make the motion. We move in camera.
Thank you. It is now 8:04. Call the question. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Thank you.